Welcome everyone to a new update in which Bitcoin has been rallying to 26k. Congratulations, new yearly high. We have been taking all the liquidity above the high. The FOMO is back. Nothing has been happening as we didn't have a few banks being collapsing in the markets. We are not going to get a continuation of the hikes at this point with Powell, as most likely he will be cutting his entire policy. But it's a tremendous market in which we reversed an entire correction within 3 days, as we have been rallying by 30%. And we see targets of people expecting Bitcoin to run to 50 to 60 to 70k or to have a big bull run. We're going to discuss the CPI numbers today, and we're going to look at the price action of Bitcoin and some scenarios that I'll be looking at if I want to trade Bitcoin at this point. But before we continue, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Also check out my free trade letter tomorrow, there's a new one, and our premium platform where you can follow my portfolio and you can get trade IDs and join a lovely community where you can improve as a trader. Before I continue, last Friday I've not been doing an altcoin portfolio update. I had a double eye infection and I had to swap places. So I didn't really had enough time to actually create an update. I'll be doing one next Friday. So please stay tuned if you want to stay attached to the portfolio and if you're holding any positions. Now today we have had CPI day, and as Biden has stated on Thursday, it's tremendous that he has got the data beforehand, which means, or probably is an assumption, that the rest of the Senate or Congress or anything related to the politics in the US also knows the numbers already. Something called insider trading. But when we're looking at the data, you can see it on screen. The core CPI month to month, the core CPI year on year, CPI year on year, and CPI month to month. All data came out earlier today. The expectations were that we were dropping towards 6%. And core CPI to 5.5. Both of these things came out as expected. So the numbers are as expected, which means that CPI and that the inflation is still falling. Within Europe, we saw a little bit different view as the markets have been being stagnant there, which means that the markets have been going up a little bit. For instance, in the Netherlands, the inflation has rallied to 8% instead of dropping from 7.6%. So that's not the best case. And we can see that core CPI is relatively stabilizing at this point. So we're still in a thesis where we don't know whether we are into the 1970s or 1980s, which was also a period of high inflation. And Powell is getting into a position where he probably has to push or see that inflation goes down. But if inflation doesn't go down and he keeps on raising the interest rates, the entire system collapses. So it's getting on the cutting edge, and that is also the reason why crypto has been doing so well. But there is a thesis that the third bank, Signature Bank, has been falling apart or been taken over by the government just for the sake of it being a crypto-regulated bank. So we still have to be relatively tricky to everything that's happening in the ecosystem. But the good part is that the US sees crypto as a threat to themselves. Which means that they find that their own economy or the financial system is pretty much weak, which we know, and therefore they want to ban stablecoins or erase it and make it quite hard for crypto to excel. And usually when you make it quite hard for something to excel, it is something that people will start to look at even more. Because if we pop up with the news that the banks have been banned because of the fact that it's crypto related, more people will be trying to investigate what crypto actually means. And they will also be thinking, hey, but why are you closing down my bank? Because it's a crypto bank which is not doing anything wrong. So it's actually helping us as a market as a whole. Now, when we're looking at the data, core CPI is at 5.5%. CPI itself is dropping down substantially and is getting towards a new level, which is 6%, everything as expected, and that is great. But as I said, we have to look what Powell is going to say next week. He is on the cutting edge of adjusting his entire policy, which is also being reflected into the data. At this point, we are seeing that the CPI itself resulted into a strong bounce on the yields. Most likely markets have been calming down a little bit of what has been happening overnight with the banks, which resulted into the most heaviest crashes on the yields ever, as I explained in yesterday's update. But we are bouncing here because CPI just came in as expected and is still relatively high, which means that there is still the thesis that investors expect Powell to continue with its policy by a little bit. But if he hikes the interest rates again by 25 bips, he might have more banks falling apart. So it's all getting towards the climax of next week, but the yields have been bouncing a little bit. Also, the dollar is still stabilizing, and the indices are doing quite well as the drop-off of the inflation is suiting risk on relatively well, as we can see with the Nasdaq, which is currently breaking back up, and it looks like it wants to continue that rally. Going back towards Bitcoin, Bitcoin has been going quite heavy at this point. I think if you were not in the position in the past few days, you're probably off guard, which I'm also mostly, which means that you're looking for a position and you feel the FOMO at this point, but these markets can reverse quite fast. So let's discuss a few scenarios of trading opportunities that I'll be looking at when it comes to the markets. What have we been doing? Well, we have been stabilizing around the yearly high, which assumes that once we break through the yearly high, we are going to get a ton of liquidity to be taken, which currently is taking place, which enables the entire breakout towards 26k. Now, clearly, if you have this breakout, you want to see continuation taking place. So you want to see it continue rallying towards this area here, which is around 28k to 30k. That's what you want to see if this is a true breakout. Because in that way, if we have continuation taking place, you can start looking for shorts around 28 to 30k, including a bearish divergence to just cover your positions or to have a scalp against the trend. But if we reverse here, I think I would not be bidding the area around 24.8. If we have a scenario where we are looking at 27 to 28 and then have this correction, it is a way more strengthened approach to take the long entry there instead of doing it at this point. If we are going to consolidate, it seems more likely that we are going to have a chop and then continue from there, which we have been seeing previously as well. Which means that the first scenario is that we have a very tiny correction, continue towards 28k, and then have a more severe correction taking place. If we don't have that, and this entire move is just a liquidity grab, then I stick to the play that you want to look for longs around 23.3, just for a bounce play, and then looking for this short where we can start building up long positions around 22.5 to 21, in which the trend continues. As I said in yesterday's update, it is very likely that we're going to continue the relief rally until the entire system of real estate markets and debt markets are going to be kicking around and the collapse continues. And in the end, a collapse is suiting everyone into the crypto markets. Might not be short term, but it is actually long term. So those are the scenarios I will looking at with Bitcoin. I think that this is not the most optimal play for me right now. But if we have a 12 to 16 hours of more upwards momentum towards 27k, it becomes a vital play. Obviously, after such a trend, you really want to be cautious when it comes to trading shorts until you can get a clear confirmation. So if you go back, we had this trend here. We tried to break, couldn't really break through this high, fell into the range, and then we started to reject the previous high, which is a trigger for a short. In this case, we had the same rally up, bearish divergence on lower time frames, which is the one that I'm looking for, then a retest on the previous high, resulting into a bounce towards the area again, and then we can see that the blocks have been giving you pretty standard short opportunities until we squeezed all the way towards 19.7. So if we have the same thesis in which we are continuing towards 27k, we probably are going to get this bearish divergence being taken here on the lower time frames. We don't see one clearly yet when it comes to the 1 hour time frame, but then I'm going to look at a potential short in which I'm looking for a bounce play here back to 27k, maybe a little bit higher. If we are not able to do that at this point and reverse quite fast from here, then I'm expecting to take liquidity and looking for these lower boundaries for potential bounce plays. Ethereum, pretty much the same view. You can see the entire momentum in the previous history here as well. We have been seeing that we had those breakers going back towards the range highs, but then it fell back into the range to find itself liquidity. In that way, we can see the exact same structure here as well. Has been taking all the liquidity beneath the lows, ran back up, took the liquidity above the highs, corrected, and then we fell back into the support areas to have another drop or shorting opportunities or bounce plays. So in this case, we've got a clear resistance point at 1820 to 1850, which I'd preferably want to mark like this. So if you want to get any short opportunities at this point, I think we want to see something like this, where we continue to move, get the short play, and then you can start looking for the continuation longs at 1680 to 1715, and then we are looking for continuation towards 2K. If we have a fast reversal from here and immediately test this level, get a lower high, then I'm looking for longs around 1570 to 1600, and then we can see continuation towards 2K. So those are my scenarios at this point. If you want to trade the markets, I think it's just time to be relatively calm. If you are into longs, I think it's time to take profits, or at least if you, for instance, if you are building your long from 19.7 and you're still holding it, daily doesn't grant you any stop loss opportunity. 4 hour gives you the opportunity to place the stop somewhere beneath this high, which means that you lock until 24.7. If you are going onto the lower time frames, you can keep on having a relatively tight stop beneath 25.6, which means that if we lose 25.6, I think we have a pretty sharp fall, especially since funding has been switching, and especially since the sentiment has been switching a lot. I hope you have enjoyed this update. I'll be back tomorrow with a fresh new one. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to this YouTube channel, and I'll see you again tomorrow.